Hello everyone, and welcome to another Steel Division 2 deck deep dive. This time featuring one of the divisions that I currently like the most for tournaments. 26 guards, Strelkovy, division that I also played in the latest monthly tournament, and that is absolutely just all around solid. And we're gonna go into why that is the case, starting in Recon tab. And in Recon tab, you don't have too much choice, but you have snipers, and Soviet snipers are decent. They can come in the VLA, they have a solid rifle, and the WLA is really helpful in getting them fast to the front line, allowing them to shoot at enemies in transports to force them to unload. They don't efficiently kill transports anymore since the latest rework to transport killing, but you still can force the enemy to get out at a spot where they might be uncomfortable with getting you territory, and they are still helpful in the late game at some scenarios where 1000 meter range can be really nice. They also have great optics, so for 20 points, for 5 points extra, basically you get a dojo that has the upside of being able to shoot if necessary, and doing a lot of stun to infantry, and good amount of damage. And yeah, like the basic scenario with like 2 to get is that I get like 2 at the beginning to shoot at enemy units from afar, and then later on in the mid game I start to bring them out with fire on return, so that you have them as recon units, and then maybe for the late game push or mid game push, like the one that finishes the game, you get them out again for shooting, for supporting your infantry that pushes with fire support, pinning down the enemy defenders, or holding an enemy counterattack. So all around, just good units, and all you basically need in this recon tab. Like some armored vehicles would have been nice, but for such a limited tab, this is perfectly fine. And the infantry tab is pretty strong. Solid amount of options, guided DPs in good amounts, and Strelkovy and Sturmoviki rocks. Sturmoviki rocks really solid. 8-man double flamer squadron for 30 points is quite nice. You get 2 cards of these. You get normal Sturmovikis, which are nice TNT units. The DT buff helped them out as well, getting extra damage out. 20 points for TNT is nice. You sadly only get them on the highest availability on veterancy, so you're a bit low in the numbers here, but still a solid card. Guided DP, the classic holding the line infantry for the Soviets, doing their job pretty decently as well. And then some more parry for B-Face. And Strelkovy, just a really nice big boy formation that can push in there in the late game as well. Oh, and help out finishing the job. Though you should get them with veterancy. Slight mistake there in my deck. Channels, just for holding the line. You at spots where you just want to hold the line and keep the front line pushed forward, that's where the channels come in. Or yeah, just being a flood in the late game and having some extra infantry availability. That's what channels are for. Not really the best combat unit, but decent enough in just being a meat shield for 15 points with 10 hit points. Tank tab is rather unique, as you have tanks that most Soviet divisions don't have access to, with the KV-1, which has a nice combination of penetration and frontal armor. Issue here is a bit the speed, but on the other side you have T-34s, which are a bit faster and a bit cheaper, but they don't have the frontal armor. How you want to use them is in decks where the enemy doesn't have much anti-tank and only has light armored cars, and then maybe a couple of heavy tanks. You want the T-34 for breakthrough, and in other situations where the enemy might have T-34s or Shermans, you take the KV-1E, because as you can see, 110mm frontal armor versus T-34's 100mm of penetration or Sherman's 90mm of penetration is the perfect armor, and all of that for a tank that is cheaper than Sherman's by 15 points and pretty much on par with T-34s. That's really nice, and their gun is just good enough to kill those tanks as well, so it can be pretty helpful in dealing with enemy T-34 or Sherman decks. And also lighted T-guns are basically not doing anything. But T-34 is a bit more the faster and more agile option in decks where this is necessary. These are pretty interchangeable here. IS-1, not a unit you should ever not take, as for 130 points this thing is insanely cost efficient. It has great frontal armor, it has 2 DTs, so decent firepower in the mid-range, and it has a good gun as well. only the 1750 meter version of the 85 millimeter gun, but the extra frontal armor above the T-34-85 1943 is just so massive. 160mm frontal armor is a really good amount of frontal armor. All the mid-range AT guns basically can't penetrate you anymore, and even against a Tiger at 1750 meter range, you have good chances of winning that duel. So IS-1, an absolute MVP. Really nice unit, nice veterancy as well. Really recommended taking them. KV-85, similar thing. Great penetration, solid frontal armor, not quite the same amount, but it's also cheaper and has solid availability as well. Speed here, once more of the issue. The KVs are all a bit slow. IS-1 at least a bit faster, but KV-85s also still really, really nice units. Pretty cost efficient as well on their 110 points. Sadly also no 2000 meter range, but 1750 is still a good amount of range, and against things like Stux or Panzer Force, this thing trades immensely well, and against everything else they can up. Like against Tigers and Panthers, they still can prevail if you get them in the right ranges, so a really all-around good tank as well. Support, you get a lot of good stuff as well. Arm 38s, if you can micro them, I'm just, in this deck, can't be asked for. That's why I don't take them. Oknovachiki for some fast flamethrowers where they are necessary. Maxims to get some defensive positions set up. And then some OT-34s in this version to have some quicker units. They are faster than the normal T-34s. And they have a flamethrower. They lose out a bit of frontal armor though. And they lose out 1 DT. But it's fine, especially DT with the flamethrower. The flamethrower is really not too key, but you want to have them as fast, cheap tanks with 100mm penetration, 80mm frontal armor to go fast around and take places for you. And then the ISU is there as the big tank killer or infantry support gun, the 2000 meter range that you need to really pop a deck up to the next level. 2000 meter range HE that deals a lot of damage, AP that deals a lot of damage, can one-shot Tigers and Panthers if it penetrates. Obviously, always a bit risky, you need to micro them well, but now that they are cheaper, they are really, really cost efficient. ISU 152 is absolutely high on my list at the moment, and yeah, another reason why this deck is so good. As I played Maverick, and I have a good amount of leaders, but not too many. As you can see, only one card here, and only the ice one here. I feel like setting up commander chains are not really worth it with this deck, so I dropped these out and rather have these 3 tank cards instead of only 2 of the tank cards. So yeah, that's why there is no commander in this deck. Anti-tank, not super amazing, but still strong. SU-85 can be really cost-efficient tank destroyer in the early game. Yeah, the reason why I didn't take the ace is because the ace isn't like, yeah, is often like extra separated when you click on them to double click them all and so on. It's a bit annoying, so that's why I only take the normal SU card, but it doesn't really matter which card you take there. PTRS 41 still solid to force enemy to unload, can also still be annoying it behind enemy lines, so yeah, that's the reason there. And then one card of M42s, nice cheap anti-tank gun. Assist 2 gun would be nice, but Assist 3's really solid anti-tank guns as well to just hold the position. As you have solid tanks and so on, I don't feel like you need too many of these medium anti-tank guns. That's why I upvetted them. Yeah, veterancy curve is decent with 6-4, so that's why here I take 1 vet to get the extra accuracy and the extra rate of fire, which is quite handy on these AP shells. Yeah, the AP shell, 105mm, good enough to deal with medium tanks. APCR shell can deal a bit more damage, but the 1000 meter range obviously is a big hindrance nowadays on these. ZSU, M15 are the saviors in the AA tab. Yeah, since you got the second card of this deck is really solid. Before this was the big weakness that you had too little AA, but 6 good 37mm AA pieces should be good enough to get you through any kind of pickle. So AA here, really functional, really solid. Artillery, you have a couple of options. In a deck, when you know the enemy doesn't have any long-range artillery, these 2 here can be viable. If you know the enemy is, for example, 4 Fallschirmjägers or 43rd Reserve Army and they only have mortars, they can't reach your backline, these two here can be doing wonders for you by firing over the course of the game. But if they have counter battery, these usually are pretty ineffective because they get pinned down or even killed outright relatively quickly by enemy counter battery. And then I'd rather use the Andreyusha, which can fire and then reposition quickly. Yeah, those are the 3 units that are on the high end. On the low end, you have the Sis-3, which is the most efficient for counter battery because it has the highest rate of fire. F-22, setting up radio in this deck is pretty complicated. You don't have any infantry leader, your IS-1 doesn't have radio, so the only radio leader we have is the artillery leader at the moment. So you would have to go the extra mile for the F-22 and the Su-76 to get their radio leader. Su-76 still viable if you expect a lot of enemy artillery that you need to counter battery, because they can reposition easier than the Sis-3. Sis-3, if you just need to counter battery a bit, these are more efficient, cheaper, and yeah. So you don't have to invest the extra 25 points there. But Su-76, if you expect a bit of an artillery fight, these can be better than the Sis-3. And then off-map is a solid off-map for 90 points. Yeah, you get 3 barrages for 90 points. It doesn't kill the most, but it pins down pretty efficiently, so that is quite nice as well. And then in the air tab, you get Yak-9s in a lot of different versions, and IL-2s in a good amount of different versions as well. Yeah, Yak-9 fighter, not the most amazing, but really good agility. That's what you have to use. Dogfighting with these things is viable, but hunting down enemy fast planes can be a bit obnoxious, so you just need to buy enough Cis AA guns to deal with that in that case. And the Yak-9 still, as I said, is good enough that you can win dogfights with them, especially if you support them with the AA. You should never buy them if you don't have AA around as a fighter, unless absolutely necessary, like if it brings in the cluster bomber or so, then maybe, but like, you should set up with AA first, then buy the fighters if you want to go into an air war. Yak-9B and Yak are really strong counter bombers when it comes to hitting the ground targets of the enemy. 2 and 4 100 kilogram bombs kill really efficiently, and the only issue is that they are relatively slow, and combined with bad resilience means that AA kills them relatively quickly. So you need to be a bit careful of how many you buy. If the enemy has good AA, they can basically push them out quite quickly, and then you have invested into something that can't really be called in without dying. So you usually don't want to buy them all, but sometimes if the deck of the enemy doesn't have anything to offer, you could just go with all of them and just bump them into oblivion. If you, like, the reason why they're here is for scenarios where you just killed enough enemy AA that you know the enemy can't set up a good AA network anymore, and then you can buy them and just bomb the enemy into oblivion. Or if the enemy AA is bad from the get-go. And then the IL-2-37, and it shows a bomber icon, but the reason this thing is here is because it has the 37mm AT guns. You could get them here as well, but you only pay 5 points extra for the capability of being able to bomb as well. And the big thing is, this only has 1, 2, 4 availability, and the IL-2-37 is starting with 2 availability, and then going up to 4. So you have double the availability in A phase. That's why I take this one. You want to turn off the bombs, so you can use the AP guns from the get-go, but that's just a small micro click for double the availability. Super worthwhile, and the bombs can be handy at times as well. Yeah, this one has the same availability as the normal IL-2, and it's not that good as a bomber, so the 50 kilogram bombs are more worthwhile. Yeah, P2 Recon, sadly, pretty horrible availability. That's why I can't recommend this. But yeah, this is the 26, and it's a really strong deck. So yeah, let me know down below what you think about them at the moment, where you would place them. I would place them pretty high in A tier at the moment. I did so in the tier list video that you can find on the channel as well, that we did with attack power. And yeah, if you liked the video, consider leaving a like, consider subscribing so you see more when it comes online. And also, one more shout out to League Season 9 coming around as well. If you haven't signed up yet, get yourself signed up and get yourself in here. This lovely, lovely thing is going on. So, see you all there. Bye-bye, and have a great day.